we look at social media and stuff, and we see people dressed up and looking all fancy and doing all these elaborate trips and things. And that's not real, any of that. It's not. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, how many times have you seen that? And then they're like divorced 2 years later.
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of the Love Atlas, the podcast dedicated to exploring the depths of relationships, improving connections, and facing challenges head on. I'm your host, Sunana Sharma, and today we have a special guest, Sherriana Boyle, the author of Emotional Detox, and she's also writing another book. She'll tell you all about it. Sherriana's work focuses on cleansing negative emotions to foster healthier and more fulfilling relationships. So Sherriana, please tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I love watching you out there on social media. You're doing a fantastic job.
Thanks.
So I call myself an emotional detox coach, and I'm also a teacher like you. I'm an adjunct psychology professor, and believe it or not, I'm also a professor of yoga, if there is such a thing. I am of mindfulness and yoga. So I've been doing that for about 15 years. And I've been writing books since, my first publication was in 2012, and it was really for educators. And then from there on, started writing about anxiety and things like that, which now is really prevalent, but back then it was, really just starting to address it. And emotional detox kind of birthed this kind of new way of thinking about emotions and the role that they play with anxiety. So I've written 3 emotional detox books.
Oh, wow.
And then and then I've written a book on manifesting, and I have Just a Spirit now, which is available for people to pre-order.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And how did you get into becoming an author for our young listeners who do want to be authors down the road?
Well, it's interesting because was drawn to writing, and it actually began because I was working in the school system. I was a school psychologist. I took a leave of absence because I was pregnant and I was having my first daughter, and that turned into the second daughter and then the third daughter. So at some point I had to say, I'm not going back. I think I took a 2-year leave. I would extend my leave of absence, keep extending. And finally I was like, you just got to let this job go. But during that process of extending my leaves, I really kind of reflected on, well, what's holding me back from going back, aside from motherhood and wanting to be with my children and raise them. What was holding me back was just how difficult it was, how draining it can be, how much energy it takes. You're an educator.
Yeah.
And it was, honestly, I was pretty young back then. I was already showing some physical symptoms in regards to my blood work was
Yeah.
starting to get funky.
Mhm.
And these are some of the early signs when your liver levels are off,
Yeah.
that you want to pay attention to. And so when I wrote the first one, I self-published it. It was really a book about how would I do this differently. And that was sort of my mindset. If I go back, because I really believed I was going back because I love my job.
Yeah.
How am I going to do it differently? And it was not, I couldn't change the job. The job's the job, but I had to change my mindset around the job. And so I wrote that book. Lo and behold, now fast forward, I write that. I'm at someone I run into realizes I wrote this book. I don't know that this person's in publishing.
Okay.
And they actually approached me and said, saw you wrote a book and you talk a lot about mindfulness and how to approach things from a natural perspective. Will you write for us? So my story is very different than what most people are doing now, is just writing. I was actually approached by a publisher, and then I got assignments for the first few books. And then after that, I would say, I have my own thoughts and ideas like Emotional Detox that I would like to create. And they were like, oh, that's a great one, right? So then it kind of evolved into that. And so I became like kind of a full-time author.
That's incredible. Wow. That's very, very inspiring. And as you mentioned, you have to take care of yourself. And you didn't go back after that leave of absence that you took because there was a greater plan for you. And fast forward all these books that you've written and you're inspiring everyone. And that's, such a blessing. In your book, Emotional Detox, you emphasize the importance of cleansing negative emotions. How can couples recognize when they need an emotional detox in their relationship, or what initial steps should they take?
Well, I think one of the signs is if you're keeping secrets from each other, if you're disconnecting, if you're going outside the marriage to get your needs met. And that can be anything. It could be drinking alcohol or going, whatever it is. If you're somehow exiting the relationship because you're not, and maybe you don't know that you're not getting your needs met, or maybe you don't know how to express your needs and your want or how you're feeling. I think also afraid to talk about things. Lot of with emotional detox, really learning how to sort of detox,
Yeah,
all these fears and anxieties around. Even people that are committed are still
right.
afraid to be rejected
Yeah.
or to be somehow made fun of or not taken seriously. And so I think communication breakdowns, and also I think when people no longer put the relationship first is a sign. And that happened to me with my marriage, where the kids, I always put the kids first, and I wasn't putting uh, the marriage first,
Mhm,
because we're the foundation for the
mhm,
children. And
mhm.
if we're not okay, they're not okay.
Right.
So I would try to sort of make up for the other side and things like that. So those are some, I mean, there's so many signs
Sure.
of a partnership, whether you're married or not, or you're raising children together or not. It happens to everybody.
Right, right. And then people who do have secrets, let's just say, and really want to improve their relationship and open up with their partner, but they
Mhm.
have all these masks and are fearful of where to start and where to begin. Do you have any advice for people who are very fearful, but they do want to improve?
I think have faith. First of all, don't give up.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to focus on yourself. I know it's tricky because the marriage is falling apart. So you think, how do I save the marriage? But I think you have to be honest with yourself. And you also have to know what it is that, again, you need,
Yeah.
and what it is that you desire. And then take some time to process how you feel, what's going on with you, your reactions. Give yourself some time to do that. And because what happens when you process your emotions is the energy changes,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to create safety. And it's going to be gradual, but it will happen, because what it is you're learning how to be present to your emotions without the reactions. So you become a safer person to be around, because people
Right.
feel things, especially
Mhm.
people that are close to us. They kind of know us. So
Yeah.
you want to create that sense of safety for yourself, meaning it's safe to process my own feelings, and it's safe. It's a resiliency thing.
Right.
Once they pick up on that, people are going to let their guard down.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel safe, or if you feel like you have an agenda, or if you
Yeah.
feel like you're fishing around for something, or you're just looking to blame, or because people get passive aggressive about these things,
Right. Right.
and they project things, and people will sniff that out. So you have to learn how to process your emotions, get that safety and resiliency in play,
Mm-hmm.
and then things will start to shift for you.
Right. And it's so interesting to me because it always comes down to starting from within. If you feel safe and comfortable within yourself and your own emotions, as you're saying, then the other person will also respond better to you. But if you're fearful going into the situation and you have all these guards up and you don't feel good about yourself, then how will the other person even allow you to open up then as well? You're coming with all these fears and all these insecurities. So I agree with you 100% on that.
And you won't always feel good about yourself. I'm going to be clear.
That's true.
Honestly, you
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah.
Emotional processing, it's not perfection. You're
Yeah.
not always going to feel great.
Right.
In terms of, you're going to be processing, you're going to be acknowledging, and sometimes you're going to feel like crap with that, because you're not in the dark anymore. I always say that, you kind of have to move through it to get to the other side. And then the part that makes you feel good is when you start to see that it works, and you start to see small shifts and changes, and they always are very small. And you realize, wow, because I gave myself permission to feel and do this inner work, that I'm seeing things shift,
Yeah.
not just with your partner, but I saw things shift with me for my children, my relationship with my children, my relationship with certain people that I had, friendships change.
Yeah.
Got new friendships, some friendships I had to let go of. And you're like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff is happening and I'm starting to feel better. So you eventually will feel better, but I don't want to like paint rose colored glasses here in the beginning. Yeah, it doesn't feel that great to move to acknowledge these things.
Yeah, definitely. It's growth on, your part and then also the other person's part, because we're just so unique in our own beautiful way. And as you mentioned, perfection, that's not the end goal. It's just about really healing your inner self and then being able to just having the awareness and knowing that, hey, I'm improving every single day. And I think that's the most beautiful thing. Can you explain how unprocessed emotions from past experiences can affect current relationships, and maybe strategies for couples to use and heal these emotional issues?
Sure. Well, unprocessed emotions are like memories in the body. So what ends up happening is they become triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that they're also patterns in the body. So it's kind of like when you feel like the same situation keeps happening to you. Maybe it's with a different person and a different situation, but it's the same feeling. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you always had a feeling of feeling left out, or you always had a feeling of not being good enough, or always had a feeling like you couldn't trust someone. That these are usually indications that there's unprocessed emotions
Mm-hmm.
and there's a pattern here. And I knew that when I went through my emotional detox. I knew that this was something, and there was something in me, and some of these patterns due to epigenetics run across lines,
Mm-hmm.
genetic lines. I mean, they have proven that. So you can see it in families,
Yeah.
patterns of reactivity, the way that people handle emotions, the way that they learn. Either they're observing and they learn it, or they learn it through storytelling, or they learn it. We learn in so many different ways, or they just feel like they were sort of born into it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get triggered, and maybe a trigger can look like, I don't like this person, or it could be anything. It could
Yeah.
just be you feel like upset, you get angry, you're like, why am I making such a big deal about this? Why is this
Right.
upsetting me? You have a hard time letting your guard down. And so something's coming up in you that is unprocessed from the past
Mm-hmm.
relationships, whether it could have been with relationship with your mother or your father or your brother,
Right.
whoever, but
Yeah.
something unhealed is coming up, and
Right.
that's a trigger. And everybody has a different way to react. So with couples, they need to know that it's really not what's happening in front of you. It's about what's happening inside of you. And so each person has to do the work
Mm-hmm.
on that, and I always say, whoever is aware of the trigger, well, then you get the baton. It's you're aware, so you get to do the work. It's
Right.
the ones that aren't aware, it's really difficult
Yeah.
because they're to do the work that's required of looking within, what's going on with me that I'm choosing, making these choices and decisions and reacting in this way.
Absolutely. And how can partners cultivate this environment of open and honest communication with each other?
So my motto is feel first, then talk about it. And we kind of have the reverse model. We have talk about it and then let's start feeling. And I say, let's put the feeling in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we can have a conversation. If necessary, have a conversation. Because a lot of times once you process your emotions, you're like, you know what, I'm good. I don't really want to talk about that. How about we talk about this instead?
Right.
And so it kind of changes the discussion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll always say, and people want to know, well, how do you feel? And that's where emotional detox is the mindset. And then the feeling part is cleanse, which is when we say cleanse, it's 7 steps, mindful steps of an emotional detox. So you start with a C, go with the L, the E, and I outline that in all 3 of my emotional detox books. It's actually my signature. It's in my last book was called Energy in Action, and that one's about the spiritual laws and how they teach us about feeling. So same thing, system. And then Just Ask Spirit, it's in there too, because the feeling is the foundation of everything. So it will never change my answer on that in terms of feel first and then take the next step and have with couples, then you might have a conversation. So it begins there. Now, I think it's really helpful to know what your partner does to feel more. And it could be a grounding thing that they do. What do you do that doesn't include drugs and alcohol to ground yourself?
Yeah.
And that learn that about your partner. What does your partner do that does not include drugs and alcohol that grounds them? Because that's going to give you information about how they process their emotions. And so if they can make that connection that this is my time to process, it's not my time to get away. It's not my time to get a break. I think we have a lot of that language with couples that we have to rethink. It's not my time to be alone. It's my time to process and to get grounded. And if we can flip that, I think we can get along a little bit better.
Right. But it can be challenging at times to be able to process emotions, especially if you're a married couple living together in the same household. So it can be unique to each individual, but do you have any tips on how or at least something that's working for you in order to process your emotions? And especially if you have, kids and husband and your partner living together and just chaos, sometimes so much happening.
Yeah. I think you have to, I mean, I practice the cleanse every day because it's about 10 minutes. And when I wrote Emotional Detox now, it has 157 cleanse practices out. It's literally a 10-minute practice. So I do that every day. And my husband has prayer. So he prays, he has a rosary and he prays. He's always dabbled in it, but now it's pretty consistent for him because, again, once you find out that something really helps you and is making a difference in your life, then that's when the self-esteem comes. That's when the self-empowerment comes. It does take a bit to find your thing, but I think the most important thing is to carve out some time for yourself. And I know I've had 3 children and all of that, but you really can find 10 minutes. 10 minutes to maybe take a few deep breaths, 10 minutes. Some people really love journaling. They benefit from journaling. A lot of people love to write out what they're feeling. If I were doing that, I would end with gratitude. I wouldn't just spit out what I don't like. I would make some time to write what I'm grateful for there. So get it out of your system. And so once you kind of say, okay, it's not about having a break, although you're getting a break. When you process your emotions, you have to know it's a it's going to give you energy. So you're going to, if you feel depleted, which a lot of people who fight and are exhausted, they're spiritually, mentally, physically depleted. They have too much stress in their lives. So I'm hopefully encouraging people to turn toward your emotions, not away from them. They
Mhm.
will help you with stress. They will improve your ability to withstand stress, and you will get better at it. So whatever you can do to turn toward them and include them in your life, and just recognize, I'm going to take time to process, which is another way of saying I'm going to be present
Yeah.
to what I feel now. And I'm not going to let these stories, and so easy with couples, it's so much chatter. You did this, you did that, you don't do this. You know what I mean? And we just get like this back and forth a lot. And at some point, you have to know that's all ego, it's all fear, it's all anxiety, it's all this inner conflict, and it's probably a lot of suppressed emotions,
Yeah.
honestly, from the past.
Yeah.
And it will get you nowhere, just make you more feeling awful. So
Mhm.
I again, of course, I love you to try the cleanse. And I cleanse every Tuesday night live with people on Zoom. So if they ever want to do a group format,
Yeah.
walk people through that. Yeah. And it's because sometimes we need, it's kind of like going to an exercise class. It's like I might go to the gym and then I'm there for a half hour, but if I go to an exercise class, I'm there an hour, right?
Yeah.
I just gives me that. So that's why I do it for people Tuesday nights and Wednesdays at noon. And we cleanse together, and I walk them through and see what's coming up for people.
I love that. And based on your research and experience, what are the key elements that contribute to long-term success when it comes to a relationship? And how can couples incorporate emotional detox practices sustain these elements? And as you mentioned, um, being able to process your emotions is huge. But
Mhm.
and I'm sure there's a lot more for couples to do, but is there anything that really stands out specifically based on your research and experience?
My experience with cleansing is you don't always have to talk about what caused the emotion. Uh, I think people need to let go of the grip on that a little bit. Because you get into this, and not especially with couples, again, bringing up the past, focusing on the future, and it's this past stuff will just drag you down, and it's not talking about it, is not processing it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get more out of looking at each other sitting silently than you would to bring up all that stuff.
That's such a good point because I'm thinking as you're talking about processing your emotions and sitting in silence, um, you know, these are the skills that not a lot of people talk about because we're talking a lot about communication and how to talk to your partner and spreading that awareness. However, there's also beauty in silence, and sometimes less is more. Just being able to understand yourself and then being calm and collected with yourself will allow you to also show up better in your relationship.
And don't complicate it, make it, keep things really simple. I think we look at social media and stuff, and we see people dressed up and looking all fancy and doing all these elaborate trips and things, and that's not real, any of that. It's not. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, how many times have you seen that and then they're like divorced 2 years later?
Yeah.
Right, they're like, oh, I'm in love, it's like I finally found my person, and then it's like, oh no, we hate each other now. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
not real. And
Hmm.
what's real and authentic and raw is true emotional, opening up. Don't forget to have fun, because you can process your emotions and dance and joke, and laughing is truly medicine. Laughing is breath. You
Yeah.
need breath to process. Let yourself laugh at some of the situations that come up, especially if you're working together or you have children together. There's a lot of things one day you're just going to crack up about, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it feels like such a big deal right now.
Yeah.
And simplicity means, like, don't overschedule yourself. You're going to schedule yourself right out of emotional processing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How you live your lives, the way that you make decisions, and try your best to make it so that you have more time to be together, and make that the priority kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And turn the TVs off, and the noise, the influences, and have some sacred time. My husband and I have coffee every morning together. I get up before him and I do the cleanse and I meditate. And then when he gets up, but I don't drink too much coffee, because then I like to have another cup with him. So I kind of just have my first cup. When he gets up, then I have my second cup, and I just sit with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, what's on your agenda, what's on your mind today. Checking in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the little things, like, people think, I don't know what my needs are, but sometimes a need is just, hey, I wish you would call me during the day, or ask me how I'm doing, or ask me if I need anything on the way home, like if I could grab some milk or something. I mean, I'm talking people, it's usually stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or tell me you love me, or I look nice, or you're still attracted to me.
Yeah.
These are the needs.
Absolutely, 100%. On, as you mentioned, just something simple as, hey, I want to have this cup of coffee with you and it fulfills me. And you maybe the other person wants the same exact thing as well. And that's, quality time together. You're fulfilling each other's needs and your own needs. And then you can carry on with the day, just starting with that positive interaction in the morning.
Yeah, and if you have children, having them observe that is a wonderful thing. If they can watch the way you integrate connection in,
Yeah.
and observing the way you talk, the way you check in. I mean, that is so important as parents. We're always doing,
Yeah.
sort of juggling, tag team, you go here, I go there.
Yeah.
You do this, and then before you know it, there's no room for connection. So you have to bring that back in again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now I'm 34 years old, but when growing up, what I remember from childhood are those loving moments with mom and dad sitting together and having a cup of chai together, going on their walks. Once dad would come home from work, mom and dad would get together, have their dinner time, have their chai, and then go for walks together. And those are the beautiful memories that, kids remember. And then those are the moments that fulfill a child as well. And then adulthood later on, those are the things that I also want because I've seen that love and, flourish.
How does it make you feel even now when you remember that your parents had chai together? How does that feel in your body?
It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel happy. And then I feel like, the blaming, sometimes obviously you blame your parents for certain things, and then you realize like the bigger picture is how much love they have for each other and how much they've supported one another through, years and years of, um, loving, caring, supporting, and it's a really good feeling.
Does
And
it make you feel safe is the question,
absolutely.
when you think of them drinking
Yeah.
chai. And that is key,
Yeah.
because if people don't feel safe, it's kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the first step of the cleanse, by the way. It's called clear reactivity. You have to help your body feel safe. That's key. That is the number one step. It is never to start talking. And that is a practice, learning how to tune into your body, help your body feel safe. Then I'm going to open my mouth after that. But I like to go through the whole cleanse because every step has meaning. The look inward step, which is the L, that's about identifying how you feel in your body without engaging another person. Because once we start saying, well, I feel this way because you did this or that, now we're stretched out. Now we're a little wobbly when we do that. We have to start with ourselves, and then we go through those cleanse steps. But the safety piece is key. If we don't feel safe, we're not going to process anything. We're going to resist.
How do you know when you are feeling safe?
By the end of the cleanse, you will feel safe. So the clear reactivity is, again, some steps that you can take. And there's many variations because not everybody likes the same variations. The look inward is identifying the emotion and then getting some breath in. The E, emit, is about increasing vibration in the body, and there's tools to do that. The A is activate. Now by A, things are shifting. But what happens is people get to A and every step is intentional. The A is about really learning to notice and observe yourself. Am I still in reactivity, or am I feeling safe? And that's that self-discovery piece. And just sometimes it's just a matter of letting go of, we want 3 steps for everything. Everyone wants 3 steps, right? This is 7 steps for a reason, because 3 steps, it's easy to go back to the cycle. You know what I mean? I take 3 steps. Oh yeah, that was, you know what I mean? But if you have to hang in there for step 3, step 4, step 5, and they all flow like a waterfall into each other. One supports the next. By step 7, you're in ease. So it's CLEANSE. And along the way, you've learned how to activate, which is activate means, am I in the moment? And how do I know I'm in the moment? That's the A step. I am aware of my sensations. I'm aware of my breath. I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of I feel calm if you're in the moment. N is nourish. Can I allow myself? I always say it's kind of like, imagine if you went for a drive and you got out of the car and you looked at the view and you're like, oh, what a beautiful view. Okay, now let's get in the car and drive home. We did it, right? N is, let me get out of the car and let me sit and let me experience the view, right? So nourish is about, again, this takes 10 minutes, but in the process, it's about, can I take this in? Can I really absorb the moment? It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm in the moment, but can I really absorb and take this into my body, my blood, my bones, my heart, and my relationship? Can I take this in and receive it? And then the S is surrender. And then the E is ease. So it's about free will.
The absorbing aspect of it really resonated with me, because there are so many times where I'll go to places and I'll have the awareness and really try my best to be in the present moment and appreciate the beauty. Let's say I'm at a drive in Malibu and looking at the ocean view. It's beautiful to be able to take that in. But then sometimes I'll question myself after coming home. Maybe I could have put in a little bit more effort to put my phone away and really, be in that moment.
Yeah. So many people take their phones out and they're out of it the moment they do that.
Yeah.
And I get it. You see something beautiful, you want to capture it, but put your phone away and then take it in.
Absolutely. And just being mindful of that. Like, it's okay to take a picture and video. Don't be hard on yourself, but then taking a moment to put it away and appreciating it for maybe even a moment longer.
Yeah. And if you're not breathing, you're not in the moment.
Yeah.
If you're not exhaling, you're not in the moment. If you're not inhaling. So that nourish it. That's why I say, where are you going? We just got to step 3. Where'd you go?
Yeah.
You went back to the trigger.
Yeah.
Right? And you went back to suppressing and repressing your emotions, even the good stuff.
Right.
So come back and stick with it.
Yeah.
You've got 4 more steps here. They're
Yeah.
all mindful, so there's nothing for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is something, there is a process here. And then eventually it doesn't feel like 7 steps, right?
Yeah.
It just
Wow.
becomes a way of life.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. And I would say, um, do you have one last advice for our listeners? You've given so much wisdom, but maybe one last piece of advice.
So I don't believe in bad emotions. I think they're all good so long as you process them. That's my motto. All emotions are good so long as you process them. And so quit putting them into good, bad categories.
Yeah.
It just, right? So negative, positive, they're all positive because they're all energy. And so take some time to process them, and you're not getting rid of anything. You're getting to it. You can't get rid of emotions.
Hmm.
And what you're doing is you're raising your vibration so you can start to allow things to move through you at a quicker pace. So emotional reactivity is just, I'm getting hung up in this. I'm getting a little stuck along the way. Ideally, things are going to happen. They're going to have moments. We can't control it. But ideally, what we want is for these experiences to run. We get the wisdom and we move on. And we get the wisdom and we get stronger and we move on. And we get the wisdom, we get more connected and we move on. We let it flow like water. We just run it, and we don't hang on to stuff. We don't carry it to the next thing and the next thing, and we let it roll. So that's requires energy. And if you're depleted, you're probably not processing. You're not turning to your emotions, you're turning away from them. So I would say give them a chance. Give them a chance.
I
They're
love
very.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just learned so much from you, and I'm already looking forward to, I would love to attend one of your workshops and go through the emotional cleanse as well, because the more you learn about how to deal with your emotions, the easier your life gets. As you mentioned in the beginning, like it's not that complicated. Just take things easy. And it's so important to apply that on a daily basis. Like emotions are going to happen. We are going to have a crappy day, but how do we handle that and how do we move forward? So thank you so much for being a part of my journey. And I'm so happy that I was able to get you on, and, really looking forward to your new book coming out as well. As you mentioned, Emotional Detox for Teenagers, correct?
Oh, that one's down the road. Just Us Spirits next. And then that one I'm
Okay.
working on, the teenage one I'm working on now. Yeah.
Wow. How do you do
Yeah.
that? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's all spirit led. I mean, I channeled. So that's why I wrote Just Us Spirit, because it really teaches you how to receive that guidance, and where are you supposed to be focusing right now. Well, spirit will tell you that, what you're supposed to be working on. Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you.